This week's chapter was chapter 11, and that was engaging students and teachers in learning and self-reflections. And this was an important chapter because it not only addressed what students could do, it also addressed what teachers could do, particularly in areas of self-assessment. We had 10 vocabulary words to define, including what student participation systems are, student involvement in learning and assessment. Both of these are ideas that are becoming utilized more and more in the classroom. And I know that in the future we will see more of this. Our four questions that we had this time. The first one was, what is performance-based assessment for teachers and students? And I believe that performance-based assessment can really have an impact. In fact, we can learn a lot more about ourselves and about our students based on performance-based assessment than simply a timed test. One example that I talked about was myself. I am not a quote good test taker when it comes to taking a standardized test, and I have found that I second guess my answers and then usually find out that I was right with my first answer, and if I go back and change it, then I really mess myself up. And I think a lot of students go through this. So if we are going to use those, it's important to teach those test-taking strategies, but I think that we're going to see a movement more towards the performance-based assessments. And that goes right into talking about using digital portfolios. My idea was why can't we take digital portfolios and have students put things in there and teachers put things in there that show how they have met the standards required, and have that evaluated by a third outside party, look at those and determine if students have in fact met the standards that have been set for them. That was something that I talked about in my writing. The third question dealt with students becoming actively involved in assessment and evaluation and using technology. And that also took us into our fourth question, which was student participation systems. I have used a student participation system. I have in fact used the one offered by Promethean World, used the site through Promethean Planet. Teachers can find many assessments already made for them there, as well as create their own through this software. And students become involved and engaged when they're using their remote clickers. They're voting, they're participating, and every student has to participate in order, and you immediately know who is participating as well as who is not participating. And it's just a good way for educators to incorporate the use of technology to keep students engaged in what's going on. It provides immediate and quick feedback for teachers, and I realize it is an expense that many school systems do not simply have the money right now to do that, but I think it is an expense that is going to pay off in the end for us, and it's something that school systems really need to begin utilizing even more. In our lesson that we had for this week regarding digital portfolios, I set it up for students to take writing samples that they had done throughout the year, and they would take 5 writing samples and they would put those in their digital portfolio, create a video of themselves discussing those writing samples, and talk about how they have actually changed as a writer and how they have grown. The idea was for them to choose the samples that showed the most growth, not only in their grammar and their mechanics, but also in their ideas that they present and the information that they give to us through that writing. And in our last section this week, we had to do a reflection on from our textbook, and one of the things asked if the first one, in fact, asked if we agreed with Kahn's statements regarding standardized testing, and I said that for the most part I agreed with the statements made. As I said before, I know that I am personally am not a quote good test taker. Test anxiety comes into play. I have had students who would just fall to pieces when it came time for testing because they would get themselves so nervous. And I always try to emphasize that I just want them to do their best. I've heard of cases where teachers said things such as, "This is going to determine if you move on to your next grade." Well, students don't, that's not true, and students do not need that type of pressure on them. They need to be well prepared for the test. They need time to practice questions ahead of time. I think standardized testing is something that's not going away anytime soon. It's something we're going to continue to use, but I think students need to know while it is important, it needs to be handled in the right way, and students need to be mentored and helped into those situations instead of just being thrown into those situations and a lot of pressure put on them. I think that it is a fast way for us to see how students compare with other students across the country, across the county, across the city. However, I don't think it's the only way. I would love to see us begin using something like digital portfolios as a means of assessment instead. Thank you.